Israel is likely to open their borders by spring 2021. Will Israel actually normalize ties with Turkey? And officials say that 250,000 Jews could make aliyah to Israel within the next 5 years. Hang on tight. This is the Joshua and Caleb Report.
In a world plagued with anti-Israel propaganda, Hayovel presents the Joshua and Caleb Report, a positive voice of truth straight from Israel's heartland.
In a world of negativity and fake news, every Christian should be connected to the life and positivity that Israel brings to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here. Luke, we've got a lot to talk about this week. We would ask you all, obviously, as we say every week, subscribe. We want to get this content every week. You guys don't want to miss out. We do cover a lot of topics on here. If you want to be connected to Judea, Samaria, what's happening here in the heartland of Israel, this is the place to get it.
Josh, you realize this is the last show for 2020.
Wow.
I just realized that.
Let's put that behind us. Let's
Everybody I'm listening to is ready to put it behind us, so nothing too much to look back on, I don't think, except it has been a good year. Year of miracles, year of a lot happening, year of prophecy being fulfilled in Israel, and definitely blessing, and hopefully you've been able to find the blessing in 2020 as well. But I think everybody can agree we're ready to hit 2020 and on a much better note.
2021.
So go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or a podcast platform. Hit the bell and give us a rating to make sure that 2021 you don't miss any content from the Joshua and Caleb Report. It's
Guys,
a good year to get connected.
Oh, yeah. And we've got, there's been really amazing provision that's been coming into the organization. We've been able to press through and succeed in such a crazy year. And that's thanks to you guys. Thanks to all those that have given. We're doing the end of the year campaign right now. We had an amazing group of individuals that have given a matching donation. You guys know how that works? That means you give $1, it like releases another $1. So every $1 you give gets doubled. So that's going on right now with us. We would love it if you join us. We just have a few days left.
Yeah, we're currently at 62% of our goal. We have less than 3 days by the time you watch this. So it's critical if you're watching this before midnight on December 31st, before New Year's has kicked in. Go ahead and give us a donation if you support our mission and vision. The link is in the description below on the whatever platform you're listening or watching on. And it's definitely critical that you give those donations right away. And which actually is going to help us with pruning. Josh, we don't know. We said this about harvest. We thought we were going to be able to get volunteers in for pruning, and we're still hoping and praying. Keep us in your prayers. But as you might know, Israel just entered the third lockdown of the year, and which they say the minimum would be 2 weeks and potentially could be lifted after that. And due to that happening, the borders are completely shut down, and they've frozen our request to be able to bring volunteers into the country.
So it's likely after 2 weeks to a month we could potentially get people, but we're starting printing. 2 weeks we start.
Right. And what I was going to say, with the end of year fundraising campaign, we're actually buying electric pruners, they're very expensive, but I would say at least could double the work of the staff guys and experienced pruners for getting a lot done. So even if we're not able to have volunteers, we have a crew here in Israel that can get a whole lot of work done and get even more done thanks to your investment.
Just so people know, this old man right here is starting to get some gray hairs. Luke, I'm going to be turning 30 in January.
Isn't there a song about that?
Yeah, turning 30. It's not like 25.
That's right.
The hands, I tell you, I still feel young and spry and all, but I tell you, after pruning for 16 years.
16 years, wow.
You prune those vines and muscles like Luke. You ever seen this?
That's right.
But after you prune,
a little hard on the old hands.
Guys, thank you to the electric printer donation. Not only will it save us.
Yeah, we're going to be giving them to the old men.
The old guys.
Starting with Josh.
As long as they have a couple gray hairs.
Yeah, hopefully I make it.
I just figured that out. I mean, really, I'm really shocked by that. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do about that.
So basically, the idea is to keep us from getting arthritis in another 20 years by having electric pruners, but it also will probably at least double our speed.
Here's the good news, guys. You don't have to worry about us losing our fingers either, because these guys are the latest technology sensors that sense that if you have skin gets anywhere close to it, it actually shuts off. So
that's good.
It's all safe. Yeah. It's up to par.
I would be worried about that.
Yeah, most people get really worried about it when they see those big loppers. Yeah. Anyway, pruning, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, so if you want to make sure we get all 10 electric pruners, and as well as a whole bunch of other things, in entering 2021 strong, doing even more for Israel, just go ahead and give to our end-of-year fundraising campaign before midnight on New Year's Eve.
Lord willing, volunteers are going to start rolling in, but this is what I say, and I always say it again. Manpower's low. We need some horsepower. We got the equipment rolling in here, and we're doing amazing things. Now I need to tune up on those.
Which be encouraged, because I mentioned in the intro that it looks like Israel's borders might open up by the spring.
Yeah.
Most likely for sure, I know this sounds funny, most likely for sure, but by summertime, which means by harvest, the grape harvest starting in August or even late July, Israel's borders should be fully open. And it's very important because this year is what's biblically called the triple harvest, right? Because it's the last harvest before the Shemitah.
The rest year.
Which means if we're going to get a triple harvest, we're going to need a lot of help. And after 2020 being a year of lockdowns, hopefully all of you are ready to get back to Israel as well and get your hands dirty in the vineyards of Samaria, the vineyards of Israel, and get your hands in some prophecy. So,
guys, on another note, I would say things in Judea and Samaria are tightened. To use the IDF, they said on Tuesday, it is increasing its security measures in Judea and Samaria. We'll talk about it in just a minute. There's been a few instances here that are unfortunate. We'll talk about them in just a second. But the good news is that Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, asked that 40 million shekels, so it's about $12.5 million, be granted to the security of Judea and Samaria to up the security forces here. So thank God for that. Hopefully that'll go in and look at that kind of thing saves lives and protects citizens. The IDF said it's our goal to protect the citizens of Israel. That's Judea and Samaria. It's our job. One of the chief commanders around here said that this week. They're committed to protecting the citizens of Israel. So thank God we have an IDF that's working in the land of Israel, and when there are hard things, there's a heavy response, and justice will be taken.
And there's potential for maybe some more building units to be approved right before President Trump leaves office, if he does. No offense to anybody out there, still holding out hope.
Still holding out. Hey, I heard January 6th is the date to be looking out for.
That's right, yeah. We've got a few weeks left.
Who knows?
Hey, we're not making fun of it.
Absolutely not.
We would love it if President Trump stayed in office. That would be amazing.
It certainly would be. Yeah. Here's the deal with the building thing, is that we know that Biden will be against it. He was against it way back in 2010.
Probably always been against it, if I can take a guess.
Yeah, sure. But in 2010, he specifically said East Jerusalem housing. He said no to it. Like, he condemned that there was houses being built, Jewish homes being built in East Jerusalem. So, running on the track record, Israel needs to get the defense ministry needs to sign this before Trump leaves, so that these housing units in East Jerusalem can be built. So it's a good thing. Hopefully it'll happen before the switchover happens, and a Biden administration could stop it. Does that make any sense, guys? The Biden administration could actually stop building in Israel? That doesn't make any sense.
Really doesn't make any sense.
But it actually does work that way. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
And it has for many years. I mean, and we personally saw it during the Obama administration years, that you couldn't get anything done in Judea and Samaria without the White House noticing and watching and basically calling Israel to stop it.
Talking about elections, Luke, Israel has officially launched its 4th elections in 2 years. We'll, I think in March, we'll see
I forget the exact date, but the elections will be happening, I think, 3rd week of March, if I'm correct. So they have a few months to get ready, and obviously a lot's happening. A new party has been formed, which they're calling it another center-right party, which there's been a lot of those in the last couple of years.
I saw a new leftist party was created, too, which is great. The more parties on the left, the better. The problem is
because then that splits them all up, and then they don't even get in the Knesset or can't form a coalition. But so far, Likud is maybe not breaking up, but a lot of MKs are. So far, 5 MKs have left the Likud party, which is Netanyahu's party. Right. And I was reading an article this morning about how just encouraging Netanyahu to, I guess, retire because the time is right. So we won't get into all that. Netanyahu has been one of Israel's greatest prime ministers, accomplished so much, longest serving prime minister, I think, ever. But just having more and more difficulty keeping the government together, forming unity, and getting anything done. And that's why Israel's going to 4th elections this year. Right. So
one juicy piece of information, Luke, is that the Shasha, she's part of the Likud.
Shasha Biton.
She may be dropping out to Gideon Saar's new party.
Right.
Which, if she does drop out of Likud has to put somebody back in because she's dropping out of the government, basically. Right. She's joining a new party that's not even elected yet. So everybody knows former MK Yehuda Glick. He's the next one on the list.
He's the next on the list.
So it could be interesting. You guys, just a piece of juicy information. You might see Yehuda Glick back in.
That's how strange Israel's politics works. Admittedly, they probably are simpler than the United States, but you might be a member of Knesset, and then all of a sudden you're not a member of Knesset, but then all of a sudden one day you are a member of Knesset again. That's kind of actually how it works.
Maybe we'll see our good friend and awesome individual, Yehuda Glick, rabbi and Knesset member.
We'll probably get more into what elections look like and politics look like in the coming weeks, but basically right now, Gideon Sa'ar, one of the leading Israeli politicians, has formed a new party, broken off from Likud. It's called the New Hope and center-right, and right now his party, the New Hope, the Likud, and Yamina on the right-wing side are polling the highest of all of them. So the question is, would they all actually form a coalition together? So we'll get more into that, because obviously polls are going to change and politics are going to change in the next couple months. So
we'll keep you on that. So the unfortunate news of this week was there was a young teenage boys that were reportedly throwing rocks at Arabs. That I haven't seen anything that's factual. It happens around here, but hey, after a terrorist attack or something like that we've seen this week, that's something that could happen. Rocks
the week before there was there's more than one, right? But the biggest terrorist attack was that a lady from northern Samaria was murdered in a forest. Right. Running. Talk a little bit about that in a second, and then there's been a lot of unrest since then. So this incident with some teenagers, some youth, basically the reports are, and we're just going to give you what the reports are, probably without our commentary so far. There might be more facts coming out in the coming weeks, is that they're reportedly throwing stones at a Palestinian vehicle. Undercover Israeli police began chasing them, and it turned into a high-speed car chase. And then the police rammed the youth's car, flipped it over, ran it off the road, crashed, and one of the youths was killed, and I think 4 others were injured pretty badly. And they've all been arrested in the hospital. And there have been widespread protests, and I actually personally saw one of the protests in outside a supermarket near us, and just very, very angry, the Israeli public, because I guess the Israeli police don't have a very good track record with this kind of thing. So the lots of protests, public calling on a police investigation, and several several officials in the Israeli government, like Bezalel Smotrich from the Jewish Home and Naftali Bennett from the leader of Yamina, definitely calling for an investigation into the police conduct. So,
supposedly the police investigate their own stuff. So the investigation branch of the police actually investigates itself, which they're saying that leads to a lot of corruption. And that's what.
And in this incident, they tried to shut it down. They even tried to keep Bezalel Smotrich from the scene, which he's a member of Knesset, so he has parliamentary immunity, and they tried to keep him out. So there's definitely something going on here, but I'm guessing there will be an investigation in the coming weeks.
Definitely something to report, just because this is one of the big news that's happening in Samaria
and it's causing a lot of the unrest in the area right now. So, and regarding Esther Horgan's murder, because that's what it was a little over a week ago in a northern Samaria forest, by an Arab terrorist, which thank God I believe he has been captured. He's being brought to justice. U.S. Ambassador David Friedman is visiting the Horgan family from the community of Tel Manasseh, in English, in response to the murder. And I just want to read something that Esther's husband said. He said to U.S. Ambassador David Friedman, Esther wanted to reach the heart of the country. She always wanted to reach the heart of things, the heart of the people, the heart of the matter, therefore also the heart of the state. So 20 years ago, we joined the small community of Tel Manasseh, which 20 years ago was even smaller, and we found here not only a beautiful place with an amazing view and good air, but also community and friends who have become family. And I think it would be right for us to try as much as possible to grow Tel Manasseh in the area. The enemy is trying to bring us down to harm us, and we need to stand our ground. They want us to leave. They want us to be scared, so we'll prove them wrong. And I think 2 things. Number one is it's just amazing that anytime there's a terrorist attack, the Jewish community's response is to grow and to build and to thrive, even seeing new families moving into the area, new homes being built. On the other note, Ambassador David Friedman said that it's actually sad that it takes a murder to grow a community. And he said, sadly, the murder of your wife, Esther, will lead to the enlargement of the community. It will be the effect of the murder. It's a shame that it needs to happen like this. Esther was murdered because she belonged to the Jewish people, and the correct and only response is to remain here and thrive. Yep. So it's kind of, you have both sides of the coin. On the one hand, it's amazing that that's the Jewish people's response. It's not death for death. It's actually life. There's a death, and our response is to live and to grow and to thrive and to build. But on the other hand, like Ambassador David Friedman saying, it's sad that that's what it takes to grow.
You know, Luke, there was also huge rallies all over the country around where they were running.
Right.
They were, because that's what Esther was going out to do.
It was in a forest. Like people, it was a very safe area. Supposedly, she was out jogging, and
people were running through the Arab village down here. All these ladies, not just people,
that's
specific ladies.
Yeah.
So ladies were running all over the place saying, hey, we're going to run. We're not going to stop running. So the Jewish response is not, it's just going to be like, hey, we're going to run.
It's to be even bolder.
So now they're running where they didn't ever run before.
Say, we're not scared of this.
You know,
don't scare us.
It's for our families. We're not going to be afraid. We're going to run. And because most people in American or just Western thought would say, hey, you know, if it's a dangerous neighborhood, I'm not going to run there.
Right.
But here in Israel, it's totally different concept.
They run right into it. Yeah.
We run right into it. We run right there. We're showing that we're not afraid of it, and that way we're actually squelching that evil that's trying to invade us.
Right.
So thank God, you know, through the horrific event and two horrific events this week, the Jewish people are standing strong, and they're not just being run over by it. Yeah. They're just coming back and they're saying, okay, we're going to press forward. We're going to build. We're going to plant. We're going to establish the land, just like our forefathers said we should. Right? That's what they're all here for. On another note, guys, Turkey. Turkey's been come up because of everybody's expecting. Okay, one Arab nation after the other is going to normalize relations with Israel. Turkey is
the Abraham Accords.
We've talked about Turkey before on the show. Would say back a long time ago, we could kick it off this way. Turkey wasn't such a problem. Turkey was the very first Muslim majority country to recognize Israel in 1949.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So a lot of people who have relations with Turkey have been good, and not until the Erdogan's rise to power has that really changed. He put on a whole fascist, and he's very Turkish and very.
Well, he wants to return Turkey to the he wants the Ottoman Turkish Empire to rise again.
Right. So with that, there a couple interesting notes as we just blow through a few things on Turkey here. They established a new ambassador to Israel. There hasn't been an ambassador for 2 years. That's how bad the relationship.
They haven't had very good relations.
After the last 2 years, there hasn't even been an ambassador, much less trying to hold it together. There's just been nothing because of the terrible relationship that's been done. But the new ambassador, kind of a bad way to kick off. He actually is a graduate of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
Turkey's new ambassador to Israel.
Yeah. Okay. The problem is the fellow doesn't have such a great track record. He calls the Zionism racism and accused Israel of committing massacres. So this
I'm not sure how long Israel's going to put up with that.
Sure that's going to work.
I don't know if they'll actually allow him to stay in the country.
Right. Now, the reason I should mention is that 2 years ago, the reason for stopping relations with Turkey was because of the Gaza situation with Hamas,
right?
With the borders and the
because Hamas is very much entrenched in Turkey, or they have their headquarters.
Their headquarters is actually in Turkey. So outside of
Gaza,
outside of Gaza, the only other big, the second to Gaza is Turkey. So it's a Hamas hub. So super problematic. So normalizing relations with Turkey, many say that it's just because of the U.S. and the government switch. Trump was actually really favorable with Turkey, which a lot of people didn't appreciate that. Yeah. He was not as harsh as he should have been, a lot of people say. Right. They say that actually it could be worse under a Biden administration.
Oh, for sure,
Turkey, that actually Biden would be a little stronger again. So he's trying to get a little closer to an Israel ally or to a U.S. ally, and hopefully that could help U.S. relations for Turkey. They need the U.S. Alongside them there. So anyway, normalizing with Israel. Here's what a few quotes from Erdogan, and that's the president of Turkey. He says, Turkey would like better ties with Israel, but Israel's policy toward the Palestinians remains unacceptable. So he's putting out another policy. He says, the Palestinian policy is our red line. He says it is possible for us to accept Israel's Palestinian policies. Their merciless acts there are unacceptable. And he continues, he says, if there were no issues at the top level, our ties could have been very different. He added, we would like to bring our ties to a better point. So
that's nice.
I don't see Turkey, like he's saying, we would like to normalize ties with Israel as a political thing, but we're still going to have Hamas headquarters here.
And Palestine is a red line.
Yeah, the way they treat the Palestinians, how much electricity they give them, and how much there's tons of money. Somebody really should just put down how much Israel actually gives these folks in return. Now, and I keep seeing this stuff pop up about how the Palestinians are, the IDF is going in, and I tell you what, This is war. When somebody attacks you, when they attack your people, like we just talked about, you go in and you clear out a home or a city. That's because there's a people that killed somebody in there. That's normal practice. Right. But most people, they get this idea that
and I guess too, what there's being presented is that the Palestinians are just oppressing the Palestinian people, or even murdering them, or killing children. Yeah. That's not even what's happening. I mean, Esther Horgan was murdered a week and a half ago. The IDF went in and arrested the terrorists.
Yeah, and they probably went through a couple hundred houses wherever that Arab village was from.
They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't kill anybody. They didn't even kill the terrorist, which would have been justice. Yeah. They captured him, Right. So that's just ridiculous that this is what's being purported to have been happening.
Yeah. So don't listen to a bunch of that kind of bunk. But that's the kind of bunk that's going on in Turkey, and that's where they're being fed. They're being fed that rhetoric, the Hamas rhetoric, right?
Well, which is, of course, because Hamas Palestinian is headquartered there.
Yeah. Other issues that I find interesting, Luke, and we'll move on here pretty quick. But Turkey, so they're condemning Israel's illegal occupation of the West Bank, right? That's their terminology. Of course. Judea and Samaria. They're saying it's illegal for Jews to be in Judea and Samaria. But here's the funny thing is if you flip it to them, Turkey is the one that's persecuting the Kurds like crazy, and that's in the big world, it's an illegal occupation of northern Syria.
Right.
So it's all politics. It doesn't have to make sense for people to say these kind of things. So flip it back on this head. They're doing supposedly in the world of UN world, they're making the same leftist. Obviously there's not a good comparison because it's actually happening there and it's not actually happening here.
So at the end of the day, is it likely that Turkey's actually going to normalize relations with Israel?
I would say absolutely not.
Yeah, probably not.
I think that,
Well, as long as they got Hamas headquartered in Turkey, as long as they keep condemning Israel and their, illegal occupation of the West Bank and Palestinian policies and calling Israel the oppressor, probably not likely. Because, the UAE was actually bold enough to import products from Judea and Samaria. That's a big, big difference from a country that wants nothing to do with.
Here's something else to add to it: is that they're threatening to suspend diplomatic ties with the UAE because of the normalization.
Great idea.
Bahrain, they also slammed Bahrain for the decision to formalize ties.
They should go ahead and just
as well
make an alliance with Iran. That'd probably be a good idea.
Right, but that's what they're worried about.
Yeah,
they're worried about Iran.
Exactly.
When it comes down to the bottom line, Turkey is also worried about Iran. They need Israel support. They need other Arab nations around them support, and they also need America. So when it comes down to it, they're not strong enough to take back their Ottoman rule. They are not at that point, so they need to make concessions and hopefully bring.
So we're probably going to keep seeing them play a political game. They have relations, they don't have relations. They have relations, they don't have relations.
Yep. So you'll see more about that. But that's what's up with Turkey, ladies and gentlemen. Probably no way on God's green earth that that's going to ever amount to anything, just because there's so much untrust between Israel and Turkey.
There is a report out that Israel and the UAE, are working together to terminate UNRWA, the UNRWA, which is the UN. I was going to try and remember the acronym, Relief and Works Agency. Basically, they're the agency that is dedicated to helping Palestinian refugees all over the world.
And only Palestinian refugees.
Yeah, only just a specific UN organization to helping only Palestinian refugees.
Tell me that's not political.
And so the United States, under President Trump's leadership, cut their aid to $300 million to the agency in 2018, leaving UNRWA completely. After the U.S. decided to pull the funding, UNRWA has relied on Gulf kingdoms, including the UAE and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, to help fund them. However, according to this report, the UAE hasn't transferred any funds to UNRWA yet this year. So it's possible that the Emirati officials are considering to let the agency go and let it gradually disappear. Now, just a couple quick statistics about what UNRWA is and what they do. Created in 1949, they supply aid to more than 3 million of the 5 million registered Palestinian refugees in Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, and territories assigned to the Palestinian Authority, which don't have time to go into it, but that number has actually grown from its original number. It's I think they're the only refugees in the world that have been increasing instead of, because the idea of refugees is that they gradually disappear because they're integrated into society in other countries, right?
Well, that's what things like Unrest
not happening. Yeah, you have Palestinian refugees, the only ones in the world that I know of that you have grandfather, Father,
3 generations,
and the Son, multiple generations being passed on. It's like a heritage, a Palestinian refugee.
Right, and you don't lose that status when you move to America and have make it well.
Yeah, you keep it. So that UNRWA is actually not doing anything in that regard for the Palestinian Authority. Now, they are notorious for their anti-Israel activities during the 2014 Operation Protective Edge in Gaza. Hamas rockets were discovered inside a school building run by UNRWA. A booby-trapped UNRWA clinic was detonated, killing 3 IDF soldiers. And aside from the massive amounts of explosive hidden in the walls of the clinic, it was revealed that it stood on top of dozens of terror tunnels, showing how closely they are embedded with Hamas. And Israel has long regarded them as an impediment to a peaceful resolution of the conflict. So for sure, they're not doing nearly as much good as they are doing bad, if they are doing any good.
Well, this stuff is factual too, Luke. This is why America pulled out.
It was courageous of Trump to pull out. And the question is, will Biden actually start that again? And in the meantime, will the UAE, they haven't transferred any funds yet this year, are they actually going to step in and support UNRWA or let them go?
Which it's actually thought that Biden will start this again. So
I'm sure, yeah. So
stay tuned on that. Some good news, though.
That's right. Time to end the show on a good note, and that is some aliyah statistics. How many Jewish people have immigrated to Israel in 2020? Well, more than 20,000. You would think the numbers would be very low, right? 2020 has been kind of not a great year.
Everybody's hunkering down, staying close.
Despite COVID-19 and restrictions and everything, 20,000 new immigrants from almost 70 countries made aliyah to Israel in 2020. Here's a little bit of a breakdown. More than 10,000 from former Soviet Union states and Russian countries. More than 3,000 from Western Europe. Almost 3,000 from North America. 1,500 from Latin America. And the list goes on and on. 70 countries making aliyah.
That's amazing.
The Jewish Agency has said it has received 160,000 inquiries from potential immigrants, while more than 41,000 aliyah files have been opened, meaning people that are like starting the aliyah process, right? Yeah. Including 28,000 from Western countries, twice the number opened in 2019. Here's the cool part. Immigration officials estimate that 250,000 immigrants could come to Israel in the next 3 to 5 years if assuming the government actually could prepare for that many people and actually could be prepared to absorb. So they'd have to have a big national national plan for such a huge wave of immigration and absorption, which I'm sure Israel would be up to the job. There always are. In normal times, Israel absorbs an average of about 30,000 immigrants a year. So not bad for 2020 being a year when there should have been probably 1,000. They had 20,000 in 2019. That was their largest year on record for people making aliyah. That was 34,000 people making aliyah to Israel. So, we're Americans, we're Christian Zionists, but if you're Jewish, and this show is for Christians, but if you are Jewish, then we couldn't encourage you more emphatically to make aliyah to the land of your forefathers. Israel is waiting for you.
No time like the present.
That's right. We don't know what's happening in the world, but there's a lot of craziness going on, and Israel is the Jewish state, and we can say
home for the Jewish people.
Israel. Yeah,
that's right. We need more people coming from America. I tell you that. That's for sure. I saw where
I was actually surprised that Israel was low on the list.
There was coming from the states. 2,800.
The U.S.
2,800 coming, but I saw where 2,500 of that 28 actually came from the states. Not Canada or
because part of that was Canada.
Right, yeah. So coming from the States, there should be a huge influx, and I assume that's probably where a lot of these 40,000 aliyah files are coming from, probably is the States. No time like the present. Come back to the home of your forefathers. We encourage that. We bless that. That's what we're here to do, is support the Jewish building up of the land as the Jewish people return to the land of Israel, to see the farms flourish, to see the communities grow, to help build this life that's returning. After 2,000 years of desolation, now's the time, the redemption of Israel, literally, the redemption of Israel, after 2,000 years of destruction, is coming back. The Jewish people are coming back from all over the world, and here we are. We're here to see that and to help that progress and to flourish, succeed. It will succeed. Even with hardship, as we talked about today, it will succeed.
That's right. That is the good news from Israel's biblical heartland and the land of Israel. Leave us a comment or reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, be strong, be courageous, and be the voice of Joshua and Caleb in your generation.
I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. covenants broken.